for the love of exercise. Powered by Recovery Systems.
Yes.
Okay. Firstly, Mike, kindly introduce yourself and your sporting background.
Yeah. Hi, Chadair. It's great to talk to you. And Salamat Hari Raya to everyone. I know today is the last day of fasting month, so well done everyone that's fasting, getting through it. And Chadair, you just told me you've biked this morning for 3 hours and no water. I take my hat off. That must be really difficult. And well done. Great willpower. I was born in New Zealand. I've been in Singapore for around 20 years. I grew up playing a lot of sport. In New Zealand, that's everything from cricket, rugby, squash, cycling. And in fact, I started cycling 50 years ago. Yes, that's right. I'm old. I'm actually 61 this year. So from a cycling point of view, I've done everything from road racing to velodrome, specialist time trialer. And then when I moved to Singapore, I discovered that I could run okay and that I could swim quite well. And that on top of having a background in cycling, I gravitated towards competing in and later coaching in triathlon, and had my share of wins and races, got into our national team, went to world champs a few times, and in later days coached around 50 athletes. So that led to really me understanding one thing. I always overtrained and I never recovered well enough, partly because I didn't know how, and partly because maybe I was silly enough to think that more was better when it came to training, and I didn't really understand how to put it all together, as well as over time, as well as what I've learned now. So that was the genesis for starting Recovery Systems around about 5 years ago.
Nice. Like you resonance what I do about like 5 years ago. Do the hard work and then forget the recovery.
That's right.
So how do you define recovery, and what made you want to build a business around it?
Yeah, that's a great question, because if you ask different people what recovery is, for example, we have 3 markets that we address. One is medical, which we're addressing through a business partner in Indonesia. So if you ask our medical customer what is recovery, and these are folks like diabetics, DVT patients, lymphedema, and people with circulatory disorders, which is quite common amongst, say, for example, the elderly, and very common amongst folks with diabetes, which we know is a big illness in Asia and actually even in the rest of the world as well. So if you ask somebody who's got a medical condition, what is recovery, they will say something like being able to walk again or returning to some sort of quality of life. If you ask an athlete what recovery is, it's bouncing back faster, it's getting the gains faster, because training makes you worse and recovery makes you better. And it's only when you recover do the gains materialize, gains meaning improvements. So it's only when you bridge that gap and get the gains, that's when when you've recovered, that's when the gains will happen. So if you ask an athlete, it's probably all about quality of sessions, recovering, being able to repeat, possibly focusing on higher intensity, possibly focusing on more volume, depending on which athletic phase they're in, and then bouncing back, because just like you're a passionate athlete. I know, because we've been working together for quite a long time, and you're a passionate athlete, but it's not the only thing you do in your life. You have family, you have a job, and you need to bounce from one thing to another with enough energy to be a contributing member of your work environment, of your home life, and also your sporting life. So recovery is a key part of the balancing act between those 3. So that's why we got into this business, to influence and improve a lot of athletes. And when we looked around at our category, which is intermittent compression, which by the way has been around for 30 years. It's been in the medical world for 30 years. It's been in the athlete world for possibly more than 10. When we looked around at what was available in the market, there's some very good products, but we thought they were missing some points. They were missing from a point of view of being accessible, being within reach from a price point of view to everyone, and also from a feature benefit. We thought we could improve on that, and that's why we started off on this journey around about 5 years ago.
Okay. So what is intermittent compression, and how does it work?
All right. So like I mentioned, it's been around for a long time. It's medically proven to work, particularly when treating edema or swelling. So when you train, for example, somebody with a medical condition, their body's producing swelling. You may have seen pictures of folks with really swollen legs who have diabetes or lymphedema. So that's we treat those conditions. When athletes train, the same sort of thing, less extreme, but the same sort of thing happens. The first phase of healing is swelling. So what intermittent compression is, squeezing and releasing. The limit could be mostly legs that we treat first. It could be arms and other body parts, but it's a squeeze and release. And unlike, say, a compression sock, which is around about 20 mmHg of pressure and static, we squeeze at around 240 mmHg of pressure. So that's 10 times. And it's moving from the foot up, it's pushing the bad stuff out and bringing on the release, it's bringing the good stuff back to speed up the three things we want: healing, recovery, and ultimately gains. Because gains means PBs, doesn't it, Chadair?
Yeah, of course. So how is intermittent compression beneficial?
Speeding up healing and recovery. Bad stuff out, pushing the bad stuff out. It's actually pushing it out through your lymphatic system, your kidneys, liver. That's where the extraction's taking place. It's removing the swelling, and it's bringing back the fresh nutrients to speed up healing, like as I mentioned, healing, recovery, and gains.
When you use that compression, pre, post, or anytime you like?
Yes.
What is the procedure?
Yes, yes, and yes. So we'll talk about warm up later. I think we've got a bit of a discussion around warm up, but for most athletes, it's the sort of thing they can use at least once a day. And in your situation, it's not just for you to use; it's for the whole family to use. A fair few of my athletes that are on a fairly heavy training load, like for example, some of the elite cyclist triathletes, Spartan races, and so on, are using it 2 or 3 times a day for 20 to 30 minutes per time.
So a lot of customer you have already right now, and athletes, right? Can you mention some of them?
Yep, sure. So let's start with Indonesia first. Andy Wibowo is a customer of ours. Have you heard of a guy called Chadair Akbar? He's a customer of ours.
Yeah, I know.
Sonia Augustine, say hi. I'll say hi to Sonia.
Yeah, I just met her.
Oh, lovely. Yeah, I see she's been out cycling with her husband. I follow her feed. And we've got quite a few members of Tribuddies actually, and outside of Tribuddies, we've got a whole bunch of cyclists because, of course, Indonesia is a very big place. So we've got cycling clubs scattered all around in the various islands of Indonesia using it. Last year, last SEA Games, we were supporting a lot of the elite sport in Indonesia. Actually, it was kind of cool because the Indonesian high performance sport found out about us before the Singapore high performance sport people do, which we supply them now. But we were giving the Indonesians, I think, an unfair advantage for last SEA Games, which we were really happy for. And I got to meet the cycling and mountain bike teams at the headquarters in Jakarta before SEA Games last year, and they were delighted with the sort of results that they're seeing. Other than that,
nice.
Probably our biggest customer globally. Did you know last year was Rugby World Cup year? You might have seen on TV.
Not seen on TV. Just heard it on my Flipboard.
yeah. So Rugby World Cup's the third biggest sporting tournament in the world, behind, of course, the Olympics and football. Rugby's the third largest tournament, global tournament in the world. We won the contract to supply Rugby World Cup. It wasn't a sponsorship deal. They consulted with us first about recovery. We talked to them. We shared some of our experiences working at big races or big events like Ironman races, cycle races, Spartan mass participation races. We shared some of our experiences, and they appreciated that and went with a number of our ideas, and we won the contract to supply. So that'd be probably some of our biggest global customer. And other than that, it's been football clubs, rugby, Spartan racing, triathlon, cycling, mixed martial arts, kayaking, canoeing, basketball, ultra running, and the list goes on. So it's not just a modality for one sport only. We're seeing a bunch of different sports use it. And we currently have 3 Olympic gold medalists as customers. We don't sponsor them. And 2 current world champions. One is vertical marathon world champion, that's Susie Walsham. In other words, she goes very fast upstairs on these very, very tall buildings. And she's the current world #1. And Courtney Duncan, here's a sport that you might not have thought of. She's the current world champ in motocross, which is motorbike racing. And that is a very tough sport. There's a lot of impact. There's a lot of, when things go wrong, they normally end up in broken bones.
Hospital.
So, yeah. So there's a variety, but if you ask me where the heart of our business is, it's in helping folks like yourself who are mad passionate about staying fit, connecting to a community of fit people, trying to have a balancing act by being, the best husband, father, and also being good at your job, trying to balance the equation with all the energy that takes. And we feel that we're really influential in helping folks like yourself to do that. So in that regard, I would say it's our biggest fans out there are our Weekend Warrior fans. They're the ones that post the most for us about how grateful they are to be able to recover quicker.
So how is intermittent compression different to other recovery modalities such as sport massage?
Yep. We talked about compression socks, and compression socks are good in a sense, but they won't work unless you're moving. It requires you to be moving so that there's a pumping action, because of course they're static and they're only a small amount of pressure, about 1/10 of what we're doing. How is it different to sports massage? So a sports masseuse cannot totally surround both your legs and squeeze from the bottom to the top at the same time. The other thing is, of course, with sports massage, and by the way, I'm a big fan of sports massage. It's that thing you should do periodically as an athlete, because it's breaking down scar tissue and lengthening muscle out. But it's a different modality to what we're doing with intermittent compression, where we're more or less a daily treatment, or maybe even twice a day treatment. The massage would be a periodic one, still necessary, I think, but one doesn't replace the other. We don't necessarily replace sports massage. I think it's a really good modality to have as an athlete. Break down the scar tissue, lengthen the muscles out. And it's normally that sort of massage, by the way, where you're crying, right? Well, I am anyway. Yeah. You're probably tougher than me, but I'm normally crying and or making painful noises. and that's a once in a while modality, whereas intermittent compression is a daily scenario.
So I also like frequent sports massage. And when there's no sport massage services now, like in these 2 months, I use the recovery system as a tool to get myself relaxed and getting me prepared for the sleep also. And it's really working for me. So is it designed for daily use, and how often, what sort of pressure is involved?
Yeah, so you definitely daily use, and you just said a really key point that if you can only use it once a day, I think the best time of day to use it is before sleep, because what it's essentially doing, it's triggering the parasympathetic system, which is the body's healing system. So when you have muscle soreness, it's not the muscle that is signaling the pain, it's actually your nervous system. So what the intermittent compression has been proven to do is to trigger the body's healing system, which is called the parasympathetic system, to activate. And that's why most people, when they're doing a recovery systems treatment, within 10, 15 minutes, they're fast asleep. And
yes,
this is great.
That's the main benefit.
We know that ultimately, the better you sleep, the better you're going to recover. So whatever you can do to get yourself into that state, for example, using recovery systems, intermittent compression, whatever you can do to get into that great, deep sleep state, REM and combination REM and deep sleep, you're actually going to maximize your gains ultimately.
So other than legs, what other cuffs do you cover?
Yep, we've got we've made quite an advancement since you got your Blue Max product, I think around about 3 years ago, if I remember correctly. So we now have arms, we have hip and glute, we have torso, and we now have the ability to put 2 people on one machine. So the machine, so everything that we've actually done, every future benefit that we've brought out is backwards compatible. So the machine that you got 3 years ago, everything that we've brought out subsequently, you can connect to that machine, including the ability to have 2 people share the machine at the same time. Now, this is a world first. It's probably the silliest, stupidest business idea I ever came up with, because I sell less units. But remember, I'm a coach, and it's something, this idea of the duality, we call it the duo system. This is something that teams, clubs, and families have really thanked us for. So we're extending that out. So that's our Blue Max series, which you have. We have a battery version now called the Black Max Pro. The Black Max Pro is battery powered, very portable. You could even, if you're being driven to work, for example, because I've been in Jakarta and the traffic is terrible sometimes, and you could be in the back of the vehicle doing your recovery, going to and from work, for example. So with the Black Max Pro, we also have the ability to run 2 people on one machine. And with this machine, it's our flagship product being battery. We're launching next month, we're launching a new cuff, which is called Super Pants. So this is a combination of the legs and the hip and glute cuff. So in other words, it goes from the foot all the way up to the thigh, all the way up to the waist. It's treating, legs, lower leg, upper leg, right into the hip, groin, tummy, backside, the glutes area. So it's treating all the power muscles as well. As mentioned, that machine has the ability to run 2 people same time. So you could have Super Pants, the full length pants on one side. You might have legs on the other, second person using the legs or the hip and glute cuff by itself, or maybe the arms. So we're fully featured with that particular battery powered product. Battery lasts, depending on load, of course, it lasts 2 to 4 hours. We rate it at 2 to 4 hours. It's a 5,000 milliamp battery. We've had it running all day at an Ironman race, 7 hours on one charge. So it's quite a versatile product. You can use that product on an aeroplane too. So long haul flights, there's a good use case there for a long haul flight to keep the swelling under control, particularly for those who might have a susceptibility towards DVT.
Very nice. So I recognize you have two type of compression. One is sequential, and another one is, I forgot. There's two modes in your recovery. So what's the difference, and can you tell us what's the benefit?
The two scientifically proven methods of intermittent compression are peristaltic and sequential. The first one I'll talk about is peristaltic. So a cuff is split up into 4 chambers or 4 zones. In your case, 4. The Black Max Pro has 6. And with peristaltic, it's treating from the foot first. It's squeezing the foot, then releasing, then moving to the second zone, squeeze, release, third zone, squeeze, release, fourth, squeeze, release. That's peristaltic. The application for peristaltic, it is mostly a modality for treating some medical conditions because it's a little gentler. Sequential, on the other hand, squeezes from the foot, then zone 2, it keeps the squeeze on, zone 3, zone 4, and then release. So that's from bottom to top. Pretty much all athletes favor that. It's stronger because, of course, with athletes, as we all know, harder is better. Correct?
Yeah, I always put almost 100% pressure.
Pressure, yeah. We with the Black Max Pro, we have 2 other modalities. So actually, they're an algorithm that mix up mode A and mode B. It's still fundamentally it's mode A and mode B, peristaltic and sequential, but it does it kind of in a fun way, squeezing 2 zones at a time, then releasing, and so on, just variations on that theme. So those 2 modalities set us apart, and the 4 combination that I just mentioned from most of the other offerings in the market. Most either choose only sequential and only peristaltic, either of those. And a number of the competitors in the market are only at 100 mmHg, which is less than half our pressure of 240. Now, having a more powerful control unit, which we do, means that we can actually power 2 people at the same time. So it's given us that versatility of one. If you're just the only one on it for the treatment, it's nice and strong for you. It's also strong enough to power 2 cuffs. It's the same pressure, by the way. It's not 50-50. It's the same pressure. It just takes slightly longer to fill both of the 2 sets of cuffs, slightly longer, but you're still getting the same pressure both sides.
Great. I heard that it's also great to use as a warm-up tool. Tell us about this and your supporting data on muscle oxygen boost.
Yep. Okay. So that's a great one. So we all know that pretty much everyone's time poor, and having a good warm-up is normally a piece of time, particularly if you're doing an indoor training set on the bike, for example. A lot of people don't warm up long enough. Now, based on our muscle oxygen data, 8 to 10 minutes on the recovery system will bring your muscle oxygen above a point that will take you 30 or 40 minutes to get to. And what is great about that is it's really helpful for time poor people, but getting that boost before a key session, the other great thing about that is there's a low metabolic cost to get warmed up properly. If you spent 40 minutes getting warmed up before a key session, it might be velodrome, it might be a running session on the track where you're trying to hit some 1K PBs, for example, or a very hard bike set. If you want to do 40 minutes beforehand to get to that point of warm-up, there's a high metabolic cost, and it's likely to burn some matches, if you understand the term. It's likely to spend some energy that otherwise would have been very useful having in order to reach that PB. So the whole warm-up hack using the recovery system is a very important one. For many of our elite races, for example, Jessie Montague, who's the top female Spartan racer in Southeast Asia, Jessie's first thing in the morning, as soon as she wakes up, she does 10 minutes on the recovery systems before she does her morning session. She's training twice a day, sometimes 3 times a day. And then while she's refueling in the evening, she's using it again for recovery. But it's a very important part of her warm-up modality. The other benefit of that is, for many people, you're getting a prehab element because you're pushing the blood into a lot of soft tissue area like knees, ankles, and so on. That normally take quite a while to warm up because they're not on a major arterial route. They're not getting a high blood flow. Using the compression of the recovery systems, it's pushing the blood into those areas that quite often can give us trouble if we don't.
Why don't you use ice as a part of your treatment?
Okay, so that's a good one. Ice is beneficial when there's trauma. So why you don't use ice for day-to-day recovery is that it delays healing, because the first phase of healing is inflammation. That's the body's response to the to the training, to the effort. First phase is inflammation. It's necessary. If you block that, you're actually slowing the recovery, and you're actually mitigating muscle gain as well, which is an important part of training to improve strength and so on. So it's mitigating muscle gain. Now, we work across a lot of sports where there is collision, namely, for example, rugby. In the case of a collision injury where there's bruising or a hematoma, a bad sprain, then of course ice is the first thing you should do, because you're controlling bleeding and it's also a form of pain relief. But just realize that it's actually delaying healing. Now, it's necessary to do for trauma, but it's delaying healing. Now, I'll give you an example of where, and by the way, ice, because places like where we live in Southeast Asia, Indonesia and Singapore, I'm a fan of using an ice vest after training.
Do you have one?
I have one, yep. So I use it to bring core temperature down. Now that's different. So that's that's different. So I'm not saying ice is a waste of time. Of course it's not. But remember, it's primarily for trauma or core temperature. Remember, in race day, we're using cold sponge. We put it on our heart. We put it on our head. We put it under the armpits, and the groin area also is a place where we can influence heat. But that's a different modality. But for recovery, using compression, using intermittent compression is the treatment modality and not ice. So all the sports we work with and the sports science people, the medical folks and so on, are all in agreement. We're in agreement with them, and they're in agreement with us on that one. Now, I'll give you an example of where it is appropriate to use ice with the recovery system. 2 days back, one of my athletes who has a recovery systems had strained the back of her knee. She said, oh, it's quite painful. Is it okay to use the recovery system? I said, absolutely. And here's what I'd suggest you do, because she was in pain. I said, get a gel pack out of the fridge, put it inside the cuff around the area you want to treat, then zip the cuff up and have it on around about 1/3, around about 30% of your usual pressure. And now you're getting compression therapy. So the benefit there is it was getting her through that painful period. She's not focusing on recovery as such. She's focusing on pain management, and there's a good use of ice and the recovery systems in that unfortunate situation where she had a bit of a trauma injury.
I think that's cover everything that we would like to discuss for today. So where can I try? Is there an offer you'd like to tell us about?
Yeah, what we'd like to do for Tribuddies is we'll have an offer for Tribuddies where we'll do a free ship. So that's on the products I talked about today were the Blue Max, which is the one you have, the Black Max Pro, or any of the Duo two-can share type combinations of those products. And for Tribuddies, we would like to do a free ship for the month of June, because we realize, just like Singapore, all the massage, other forms of recovery are closed. People are discovering how great what we do is for them, particularly around home use and around multiple members of the family use it as well. So we'll do a free ship code. I'll post that. You'll see that link on the interview. And so when you at checkout, just put Tribuddies, and that will instantly and magically give you free shipping to Indonesia. Of course, folks can reach out on our website chat. I try to get to all the chats myself wherever possible, or they can WhatsApp me. My Bahasa is not very good, but I know a lot of the Tribuddies speak very good English, far better than my Bahasa.
That's a good news, because like when I post about recovery system, people are asking me, because this is the solution for the not going to sport massage. I think that's great for next month. Yeah, we're starting in the 1st of June, or we're already starting now.
Yeah, as soon as people watch this video, and if you're speaking to folks even before the video comes up, then please tell them that Tribuddies is the magic code for free shipping to Indonesia. It's been great catching up.
Great news.
Great catching up.
Of course, Mike.
We look forward to seeing you in person again soon. And hi, and once again, happy Hari Raya, Selamat Hari Raya to all the folks that have been fasting, and enjoy your celebrations. And we look forward to getting back to normal training.